Hi guys, welcome to Money Africa's YouTube channel. Today I'll be talking about a topic that is very close to my heart, your pension and everything you need to know about it. Today's focus is going to be on the Nigerian Pension Fund, and we'll talk about the one for the UK and for the US another time. Now let's get into the numbers. We did the research and we realized that only 9 million Nigerians are in the pension fund system. That is, only 9 million Nigerians have a retirement savings account. What does this mean? Gets really interesting. As they started to get older, that is, they started to increase from the age bracket, we started to see women falling off. So after a certain age, we're seeing a reduction of women in the pension system. So could it be that, they retired earlier? It would be interesting to know. But another thing that really jumped out at me as well, still looking at the pension fund numbers, is that only 9 million people are in the system. There are 200 million Nigerians. Let's say they said 50% of Nigerians are under the age of 35. So now let's even say about 100 million people are over 35 and should, of course, have a job. Only 9 million of those people actually do have a job. Majority of them fall under the informal sector. And you know what happens in the informal sector? Many people do not have pension fund. They are not planning for the future. What this also means is that there's a very high chance that people's children and people's relatives will most likely be their pension plan. That is, when they hit the age of 60 and they cannot work or they cannot look after themselves anymore, the children would have to take on that responsibility. And we're also seeing what is happening now with unemployment. But unlike back in the days when people in their 20s would have a job, we're seeing those numbers drop now, or many people are still living off their parents in that duration. So the question I want you to know is, what's going to happen when you hit 60 and you do not have a retirement savings account, or you do not have a pension plan, or you are not planning for the future? What is going to happen? But let's go into the numbers now. Nigerian pension at a glance. The total pension asset is 21.7 trillion naira. That's a lot of money. Active RSA holders has about 10 million naira on average. Then 18% of those people make a contribution, monthly contribution, and the industry average has a return of about 19%. Those are the numbers at a glance. We have two categories for the pensions. We have the mandatory contributions and we have the voluntary contributions. The mandatory contribution is the one by law that states that the employer has to contribute and they also have to deduct a portion of your salary into the pension fund. And the voluntary one means that you can choose to contribute towards it. So let's look at the mandatory one. It is required by law. Any employee that has over 15 permanent staff has to have it. Number two, 10% from the employer and 8% from the employee. That is a match. Deducted from the salary automatically before it gets into their hands. It is managed by your chosen pension fund administrator. That is the company, or you get to choose who your pension fund administrator is. You cannot access it until the age of 50 or retirement, and you can only access 25% of it if you were to be unemployed for at least 4 months. It covers basic salary, housing, and transport. Now let's go into the voluntary part of it. Number one, you choose the additional amount you want to contribute. It is tax deductible, reduces your taxable income now. You can access 50% of it if unemployed for 4 months. You can withdraw at any time. The tax implication will apply. And also it grows alongside the compulsory mandatory one. And it's also one of the ways to kill your tax bill. Now, let's get into the different 4 fund types. Let's start with the fund categories. The retirement savings funds types and which one you should be in. Fund 1, it has high and it's equity heavy. What this means is that you have to be under the age of 50. And in this category, you have to have chosen to be here. It is optional. You literally have to make a formal request to be in Fund 1. You have to be under the age of 50. And there's a maximum of 70% of that fund that is put into variable income. So things like the stocks and all these other high-risk instruments. This is for Fund 1. Also, you have to maximize long-term growth. That is the main objective of this particular fund. So if you're under the age of 50, you're looking for a high-risk fund, you want to maximize long-term growth, you can formally write to your pension fund administrator asking them to transfer you to Fund 1. And you can only be transferred from Fund 2. You cannot move from Fund 3 and you cannot move from Fund 4. Now, let's get into Fund 2. Fund 2 is your default for anyone that is a worker and is under the age of 50. So for instance, I'm in my 30s and I work, automatically I go under Fund 2. If I want higher risk, then I can formally request to be moved to Fund 1. Under Fund 2, up to 55% maximum is in variable income instruments, that is the stocks and all the other kind of high risk instruments. The aim of this fund is to balance your growth and moderate risk. So maximum of 55%, you're balancing your growth and you're looking at moderate risk. Fund 3, it's very conservative. You're near retirement, you're 50 or older, you're near retirement. At this stage of your life, your primary job is to protect and to accumulate. And in this fund here, only 20% maximum is going into variable income assets. So they can see that you're hitting closer to retirement and they're now being more cautious and ensuring that they are managing your exposure to equity, stocks, and other variable income assets. Now we have Fund 4. Fund 4 is strictly for retirees. So you are retired, you still want to make active contribution towards your retirement fund, you fall under Fund 4. In Fund 4 is very low risk. A maximum of 10% is going into variable income, and you're preserving. You're preserving. I mean, you're over 60, you want to preserve, you want to protect, you want to preserve. Now, recap. Fund 1, high risk, maximum of 70% into variable income. Fund 2, moderate balance, maximum of 55% into variable income instruments, balanced growth. Fund 3, conservative, maximum of 20% into variable income. And Fund 4, low risk, maximum of 10% into variable income. Fund 5 is ethical and halal and Sharia compliant options. And Fund 6 is for micro pension. Remember at the beginning of the conversation, we spoke about how majority are in the informal sector, and hence they created the Fund 6 for them. Now we did a research and we're looking at how have those pension funds performed over the years. For 2025, we're seeing Pension Alliance topping the charts. Right next to it is the Trust Fund, and number 3 is FCMB. In 2024, we see Nigeria Police Force Pension topping the chart, followed by Pensions Alliance and then Access ARM, amongst others. The thing is, you can switch your fund, your pension fund administrator if you want. There's always a chance during the year that you are allowed to switch. So if you've looked at other pension fund administrators and you feel that there's a better return elsewhere and you want to switch, you are absolutely allowed to switch. The Pension Commission did a revised regulation in February 2026, and this is it. They are increasing the limits of ordinary shares in RSA funds 1, 2, 3, and 4. This means that your pension fund administrator can now invest more of your pensions in stocks, which historically drives long-term results. Let's look at it. In the past, Fund 1, the one we spoke about previously that has a high growth propensity, the minimum used to be 30%, now it's 35%. For Fund 2, the minimum used to be 25%, now it is 33%. For Fund 3, the minimum used to be 10%, now it's 15%. And Fund 6, that is the one for self-employed, the minimum used to be 25%, now it is 33%. So what this is basically saying is that the Pension Commission is literally telling pension fund administrators, we are increasing your limit for you to invest more in the stock market. So how is that going to impact on the stock market now that there is more cash from the pension fund administrators to invest in the stock market? We'll talk about that in another video. Please start early. Once you're in the workforce, want to work at companies that are contributing towards your pension fund. And if you're self-employed, you work for yourself, you can also consider setting up a pension fund contribution for yourself. Let me give you an example. If you started at 25 and you retire at 55 and you were just contributing 20,000 Naira every month, we're seeing an average of 19% annual return based on the 2025 industry average. You would walk away with 221 million. The numbers changes. So let's say the average falls to 10%, the number is going to change. So just basically showing you what is possible by you getting started, staying in the market for as long as possible, and thinking of your future and your pension. So how do you choose your PFA? Number one, you check the consistent returns over the year. Number two, you check for your fund type versus your age. So I'm definitely going to be in either fund two or fund one, but I'm going to lean towards fund one. Number three, check the PFA's technology. So can you check your balance on an app? Is the customer service good? All these other things that is important to you. You get to decide what is important to you. And then you can switch your PFAs once every year. PenCom allows annual transfer. So if your PFA is underperforming consistently, switch it. It's your money and it comes at a cost. Please share this with anyone to learn about the pension fund sector in Nigeria, how their retirement savings account works, and how compounding affects them long term. What fund should they be in? Should they only do the mandatory one or should they also add the voluntary contribution? Thank you very much.